So this is another one about innovations in facades. But now we are at a company which is not into facades. So where are we and who are you?
Okay, so I'm Alessandro. I work here in WASP in Massa Lombarda, and I'm head of marketing and communication department together with Francesca.
Okay, WASP. What does WASP mean?
Okay, so the name is actually very interesting because from the name itself of the company, you can kind of see and understand how we were born and what is our aim. So basically, WASP was born in 2012, and the idea was that we could work as a wasp, the animal, and use the material from the ground, from what was around us, to create our house, our home.
So taking the material which is giving, and then creating the place I'd like to live in.
Exactly. You can imagine like the animal that flies and collects the material from the ground and use it to create their home. So that is the idea. Basically, what we thought at the time was, what if we could use very simple and raw material to create our home, and create a technology that could work in this way, so that we can use these machines to go to very off-grid places in the world.
I see.
And use very, let's say, cheap materials to create houses.
Local materials
exactly.
to be created at the site.
And that's where the dream, let's say, started. And then step by step, we started to develop these technologies that right now are fully operational and that can be used all over the world to create these projects that you see around here.
What technology? What technology is it?
Yes, it's a 3D printing technology. It's an extrusion-based technology that works with all types of liquid material. We call it LDM, liquid deposition modeling. So it works with any kind of fluid-based material, and for us it's mainly earth, but it can work also for concrete and clay, etc. And it works depositing layer by layer each.
Which means it's an extruder,
yes,
which
exactly.
then on a surface creates the shape I'd like to create, and then another line and another line, like doing cookies, and layers and layers and layers.
Yes.
So what we see at the back is, say, different types of materials, all made in the same extrusion process, with an extruder which then with a roboter arm or whatever is kind of moving around and creating the shape. So what's this material?
This is earth mixed with different fibers and other, let's say, waste production material, but all coming from a very natural and sustainable place. And it was built together with IAC, which is in a university in Barcelona, with our machine that is called Crane Wasp. That is the machine that we use for all types of architectural production.
This is this prominent stair, which I think is made by them as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's a collaboration between the two of us. And basically what we did was we gave them our machine, the Crane Wasp. And for the first time, that machine was used by someone that wasn't us. And right now, even now, after maybe around about 5 years, they still are using it autonomously. So it's a machine that does not require only, that cannot be functioned by only WASP, but for people all around the world. And that for them was the first case, but now there's a lot of more companies that are doing the same.
Now we see this, and we see this is a clay plus fiber material, and we can imagine, okay, this is really a solid piece. You really feel it's a solid piece. So this could be a structural component. This could also be, say, a cladding or a surface, an outer surface. And the more free form you get, the more your technology likes it, I guess.
Exactly. The thing about 3D printing, and that is like kind of absurd, but the more a shape is organic and let's say different from the classic square, the better it is for in terms of shape and structure. Of course, there are limitations, especially overhanging, so it's very hard to create something that can be basically like
arching.
Exactly, but we managed to do that as well for Tecla, the project Tecla with Mario Cucinella. With that project, we basically pushed the limits of 3D printing.
When I look at this, when I look at this this one, it's again, I think, clay, but you also see it creates an overarching geometry. So I assume having the nozzle printing these layers, but then creating these shapes, that's quite complex.
Yeah, and the thing about 3D printing that is super cool, that can work in many different ways. It can work also with the inclination, and the size of the nozzle can also change a lot of how we see these shapes. You see, the nozzle here is super big. That creates something that is very weird for someone who just knows in general about 3D printing, that imagines these very small layers, but in this case, the layer becomes a real structure. So, and that also is something very cool to take in consideration when you print, because you can't work just by abstracting. You have to take in consideration these very concrete and real elements, that is the layer height.
And if it's, say, having this is a certain size, now we go to this one.
Yep.
So this is obviously a lot smaller. This one as well. Creates a different geometry, allows also complex geometries, but what material is this?
This is clay.
This is clay.
Because this is made from a different machine than this one. Because not many people know, but WASP does not only produce architectural 3D printers, but it spans from a very large variety of printers, from industrial one and to clay ones that can be sold also for artists and universities. This one was done by a 3MT LDM. So it's basically a large-scale 3D printer, but not exactly architectural size in the sense that it can build houses, but it can build all sorts of furnitures. Yeah, it's basically like 1 meter per 1 meter. So it's still a very big size, but it's small contained, and it's thought for companies and industries, but also artists that want to experiment with this material. And one very cool thing is that when you start to approach the world of architectural 3D printing, what we always suggest to our clients is that, okay, if you don't know about 3D printing, start with a smaller scale, and then we will make the upgrade to the bigger scale. Because to have that print, you have to first master, let's say, the art of smaller scale. So you start working with smaller layers and, let's say, easier material to work with, and then you gradually upgrade to larger scale.
Larger scale, okay.
So it's always like a test, and then you go from small to big.
Let's talk about this one. So this is
concrete.
Concrete. So this is again done with the same kind of printer.
Yep.
And as you said, you're entirely open for what kind of material you print, as long as it's liquid and then self-hardening.
Yeah.
This is a weird object. I assume it's somehow hanging like this. Me as a facade specialist, I'm obviously thinking, okay, this is a quite free-form shaped facade component, is it?
Yeah, this was done with our smaller machine, the 4100, and it's done in clay.
I guess it's done like this.
Yeah, it's basically, the cool thing about this is that this is just a very small part of a huge project that was done, and each piece was designed parametrically, and each piece was different from the other. There's no equal piece.
Each piece is different, and they may fit together, but they are all different as surfaces.
Yeah, and all together they create a huge project that was developed using parametric 3D printing softwares.
And when I look at it, I directly identify, okay, this is where it hangs, but this is where it leans on to make sure that it really finds its shape to the outside.
Yeah.
Really interesting. So this is clay printed?
Yeah, it's in clay.
Then it's dried, and then it's fired?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so it actually stands as an typical ceramic, outside ceramic.
Exactly. The cool thing about ceramic 3D printing is that it works exactly as classic pottery. So if you come from the world of pottery, it's relatively easy to get into 3D printing because the material is the same. It's just let's say the technology that you use is different, but everything else is exactly the same as you would do by hand.
I think I saw a glazed piece of pottery.
Yeah, it should be there.
As we were talking about the pottery as a facade cladding, you also, of course, think about glazing it.
Yeah.
Which is what we see here. So there's a different type of geometry, okay, but it shows clearly that there's a final finish.
Yeah.
How does it work?
Yeah, so it works exactly as it would work for any type of traditional pottery. Once you have the 3D printed piece, you can go to someone who does traditional glazing, and you can just tell them, okay, can you glaze it for me? And that will work exactly as it would to traditional base done by hand.